Hi, everyone. This is Matt Hamilton with US Lacrosse and US Lacrosse Magazine. I'm here joined by Kyle Hartzell and Pat Young. We're here to talk about the current climate and what we can do as a sport to kind of move forward. And we want to have an honest conversation here between two teammates. And we'll kick it off right now. We'll have them introduce themselves, give a little bit of their background, some context about themselves, and we'll go from there and talk and have an honest conversation here. So. Kyle, I'll start with you if you want to just introduce yourself, give a little background about where you grew up, and then we'll kick it off to Pat.
Kyle Hartzell, played for the US Lacrosse Club, and then I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Grew up in a town called Dundalk, Maryland. Went to high school in Baltimore, and then currently living in Los Angeles. I'm in Utah now because everything's open here, and I get to work out of the gym. So, about it.
Awesome. My name is Pat Young. Also on Atlas Lacrosse Club. Grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. Went to high school in Christchurch, Virginia. Made my way to UMBC and University of Maryland, and kind of been hanging out in the Baltimore, Prince George's County area of Maryland ever since. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I appreciate you guys coming on here and talking about this. But I wanted to start with why we're having this conversation. Obviously, America has been talking about this issue for about a week, a little more than a week since the death of George Floyd, and we've seen the news coverage, we've seen the social media posts. It's the topic that America is talking about right now, and so we at US Lacrosse and the magazine felt like this was a subject that we just couldn't ignore. So we wanted to have some open conversations here, but I wanted to just start with just a general question, and I'll start with you, Pat, is just how are you and where is your head at with everything that has happened in the past week or so?
Well, thank you for asking. To be honest, it's been a very stressful and mentally taxing past couple of weeks. In terms of where my head is, I think that it's not, just me as a Black man or me, specifically as a Black man, but the whole world right now, there's a lot going on, right? And when you turn on the TV or you go on social media and you see some of the things that are going on, it's going to make anybody think differently than they did before. So with that being said, my reality has changed. Plain and simple, like, my reality has changed. I went for a bike ride the other day. My tire was flat. I ended up getting a flat tire, and I'm actually in an area where I'm pretty much the only Black person I've seen for the past couple of days. And when I got that flat tire, I was 6 miles into into a trail that I've never been on before. And I didn't have any cell phone service. And I was scared for my life. When I say that, it's a real thing. Because, it came to a point where I'm pushing the bike now and I'm running with the bike, and I'm passing all different kinds of folks. But I'm not really sure what it looks like to them. But it could very really easily have been like, hey, I see this guy, pushing a bike or whatever. It could escalate so quickly into something that it's not. And that's my reality. So that's where my head is, and it's been very stressful. I ran all the way home, and when I got home, I cried to my mom because it's hitting me. It's really starting to set in and sink in. So it's a lot to carry on a daily basis. It's definitely not. I'm happy that it's being seen and it's on this level, but it's not. It's a lot. It's a lot to be able or to have to kind of see it on a daily basis and have to carry this, especially as one of the leaders in the Black lacrosse community. I feel like I'm obligated to speak out and use my voice, but at the same time, carrying this on a daily basis is a lot.
Yeah. And it's Kyle, I want to just ask that same question to you. Obviously, you have different experiences than Pat, but you've seen everything that's gone on this past week on social media and the news, and you hear Pat's story. So how does it feel hearing that? And where is your head at as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's just terrible that he has to feel that way. Obviously it's a lot different for me because I don't get to experience that. I get to witness it, hear his story. But I just think, people have become, just too numb to it. It just happens so often. I think this was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? The video of the cop 9 minutes on his neck. The situation was just so avoidable, and you're seeing all these people protesting. It's the largest civil rights movement we've ever seen in this country. It's spread to Europe, the UK. It's actually fascinating to see because I think people have had enough of it. And I've kind of sat back and have just listened because I'm not put in that situation. I get to witness it. I don't have to worry about riding my bike down a trail, getting flat tire, right? I can just wheel my bike out. I don't have to worry about that. It just sucks that Pat has to go through that. And I feel really, really bad, that he has to experience that. And like I said, as a white male, I don't have to worry about that. When I'm driving my car, I get pulled over by a cop. I'm not scared in the slightest. And hearing Kyle Harrison talk about it, and then also hearing Pat talk about it, right? They both have young kids. I don't have kids, but they both have young kids, right? Pat just had a daughter, and he has to worry about, I'm sure he's scared for her life, right? When she's getting raised, when she starts growing up, when he has to let her go to school on her own and then let her go off on her own, right? Pat's not gonna be able to watch her 24/7, right? She's gonna probably experience stuff on her own. Hopefully when she grows up, this is taken to this situation has moved into an area where we as a country have come together and gotten past this, but it just has happened too often, right? I mean, we see it not just George Floyd, but there's been so many instances that have gone, people are outraged for it for about a week, and then it just disappears, right? It just disappears. People talk about it, and then time passes, and then we kind of sweep it under the rug, right? I think this certain instance, that's not going to happen as you see across the world. It's I've never seen anything like this spread. I'm seeing protests in Europe, in the Netherlands, and people are just fed up with it. And I think I'm 34 years old, and I've been watching Jovan Miller's teaching points. I've pretty much never paid attention to his Instagram page till now, but just seeing the stories he's putting out there, kids that were lynched back in, as a 13-year-old kid that offended a white woman, Emmett Till. One of the things he wrote down on the whiteboard back in 1955, right? He was lynched for offending a white woman in a grocery market, right? A 13-year-old kid lynched. It's stuff I wish I knew that because they didn't teach that in school. We didn't learn Black history in school. I think it should be taught in all schools across the country because at a man at 34 years old, I'm just learning about this stuff, right? And like I said, as a white person, I don't have to worry about walking down the street, riding a bike, getting pulled over by a cop, as Pat has to in his lifetime. But I'm glad this is shedding light on the situation, and hopefully we started the right conversation, and I think it's moving in the right direction. Time will tell, and we'll have to see for ourselves. So.
And Kyle, you mentioned things moving in the right direction. You also talked about how this event may feel a little different than maybe others that we've had in the past couple of years. And Pat, I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, do you feel like this event is different than previous ones that we've experienced in the past 5 to 10 years? And how can we as a lacrosse community and the country make it so that it is different?
100%. I do believe that this is different than any issue that's come up before in terms of race, because like Kyle said, this is something that's hit all over the world, but something that everybody feels because this is coming from, this could be anybody, right? This could have been anybody. It doesn't matter if you're Black, white, Latino, it doesn't matter. This can happen to anybody. So I feel like that's why we're all coming together. And that's why this is one of the largest civil rights movements in history, is because yes, Black Lives Matter, but at the end of the day, right, this is happening way too much to everybody. So in order to fix Black lives, we need to all come together so that we can make sure that that happens. And I think that lacrosse is in a great position to make that happen because of the people that play, right? So not only do they have the financial resources to be able to donate to these causes, to be able to back these causes, but in terms of the people, the dynamic of the race that plays, right? It's a predominantly white sport. Granted, the Native Americans created it. Now it's a predominantly white sport, right? And most of the people who have the most, I guess, for lack of a better word, the most power in the game are white, right? So in order for that to change, we have to either have people who are able to empathize or sympathize or know what's going on in the Black community, B, are able to communicate, reach, and actually be in those communities, and C, allow those people to grow in this game of lacrosse, right? Don't try and pigeonhole somebody because you think that they should be this, or don't try and not give somebody a second opportunity because you think that their counterpart would suit that position better just because of the color of their skin. Everybody deserves the same opportunity. Everybody deserves the same amount of chances to prove themselves. And that should be at the end of the day, right? Your talent should speak for itself.
Yeah, and it's this sport you mentioned, predominantly white sport. There's no hiding that. That's the reality of lacrosse. And we've seen the past couple of days here a lot of prominent white lacrosse players speak out and share their voices alongside prominent Black lacrosse players. And Kyle, you're one of those people that are vocal on social media and taking a stand here. And I guess I want to kick the question to you is just, why did you feel like stepping up at this moment, and why, are you being that advocate for teammates like Pat and other Black lacrosse players?
Oh, you guys cut out there for about 5 seconds. So I missed that part of your question. So just ask the question again. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So I was just saying you are vocal on social media. So why do you feel like you need to be vocal and you need to voice your support for your teammates like Pat?
I mean, I think, before this, it was just coming from the African-American players. And like you said, it's a predominantly white sport. And I think it's very important for white lacrosse players to speak up on the issue, because at the end of the day, right, I have, my following on my social media page. I have a lot of young kids that follow me, right? And they listen to a lot of what I say. They want to grow up to, whatever, whoever's following me, if it's a Paul Rabel, whatever it is, a lot of those kids are listening to what we say. And I think, kids at a young age, my message the other day about how I felt about the situation and, enough is enough and so on, kids see that, and hopefully at a young age, right, they're listening to that, and then they can move forward, right, and start conversations maybe with their friends if they see racism, speak up. Because when I was a young kid, right, I saw a lot of racism, and I necessarily didn't speak up because, one, I was young, two, I was scared, and three, I just didn't know about, I was just uneducated about it. So I think using our social media platforms, hopefully you're seeing more and more guys speak up about it. But again, at the end of the day, we need to listen as well, because I'm not a professional on Black history. I'm learning a lot more about it. I've been doing a lot more research at night after hearing Jovan Miller talk about it. But I think it's really, really important that we as white players step up and say something, because at the end of the day, whoever's following us, whoever's listening to us, right, my message might reach a couple hundred kids, might reach one kid, it doesn't matter. But the more people we can change via getting our message across, me speaking up about it, and making these kids feel like it's the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do, and it's the right thing to talk about it, right? We haven't talked about it. This is the most I've talked about it, ever in my entire life. And I think, it is an awkward conversation. It's a hard conversation to have, but it's the right conversation to have, because it's not going to change unless we all speak up about it, have a conversation about it, and then at the end of the day, change and then move forward. And how do we move forward and change, right? It's got to happen. Right, like you said, the sport of lacrosse is a good avenue for change, but man, it's a wider problem, right? The government, you got Trump at the top leading it, and then it trickles all the way down, state to state to state, with people, and different states might have more racism in it, whatever that may be. But it's going to take, I think, athletes you're seeing, even white football players speaking up. Joe Burrow talked about it. Tom Brady spoke up and talking about it. I think it's very important that those guys speak up, because Richard Sherman said the other day that those guys are on the platform, right? Not a lot of people are going to listen to Richard Sherman, but when Tom Brady speaks, a lot of people, his following is way larger, right? If Tom Brady can speak about it, and our top athletes can speak about it, it's going to start that conversation. It's going to start change, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Pat, from the other side of this, we've seen many different lacrosse players, Kyle Harrison, Jules Henningberg, Trevor Baptiste, share their stories and be really honest about what they've experienced. And you did the same on Instagram. You put an Instagram post up a couple of days ago there. And so the same question applies, in a different way is why did you feel like you needed to tell your story and share that with the lacrosse community?
It's funny that you asked that, because my whole thing, and a couple people were a little bit upset with me because I took a little bit longer to make a statement. My whole thing is I felt like I shouldn't have to, because Black people shouldn't be dying like this, right? Racism shouldn't exist. I shouldn't have to sit here and explain my situation to a bunch of people who have been trying to tell this for years. And so I was really frustrated that, because also, if you do follow me on Instagram, 2 weeks prior when Ahmaud Arbery died, I made a post about that. So it was almost like, for me, it was like, wow, I'm talking to nobody. I'm posting this. I'm very outspoken about all of my experiences. And so for a while I harbored that energy. But eventually, I saw different people posting, and I saw the reactions that they were getting. And, I knew that, like I said, I'm a predominant figure in the Black lacrosse community, and that my voice matters, and can be a vehicle for change. So then I just decided to put something together. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, and I plan on continuing to take action and sharing not only my story, but other Black lacrosse players' stories on a bi-weekly or weekly basis, just so that we can keep this conversation going. Because like you said earlier, this is at the forefront of our nation. This is at the forefront of the lacrosse world right now. And for something to actually happen, and for this not to be a week-long conversation or a month-long conversation, we have to keep this going throughout.
Yeah, it's something that's happening right now. You have, different people in the lacrosse community sharing their feelings, having conversations with people. So Pat, I want to ask you is, we talk about Kyle voicing his support, and other teammates that you have voicing their support on social media. How does that make you feel, seeing that, the outpouring of support from teammates, from many people in the lacrosse community, and how may that help advance the cause of making the sport more inclusive?
It's awesome. It truly is. To have white teammates, Black teammates, whatever it is, to reach out and check in and say, hey man, I know I will never understand, but I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn. I'm here to have your back. That is actually priceless. But the one thing I will say is, for those people who are not, people of color, white, whatever it is, make sure that it's genuine. Make sure that is genuine, because I know if you're being genuine with me or not, just like if I'm being genuine with you or not. So it's a vibe that you're gonna get. And then B, if it's not something you're comfortable with, or it's not something you truly believe in, then I'd rather not have you reach out to me or act like you're my friend, or just follow along with the trend because you feel like, oh, this is the right thing to do. No, if you don't feel like that's the right thing to do, if you truly feel in your heart, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this, that's fine. But I mean, it's not fine, but don't fake it. Be real about it. Be genuine. And that's what I appreciate about all the support that I've gotten so far, is that it's been genuine. So, yeah.
And you say the word genuine there. And so you and Kyle are teammates. I want to transition this to actionable items. What can we do to move forward? And so you mentioned that word genuine. I guess I'll start with Kyle there. and we can have it, you guys can go back and forth and discuss this, but as teammates, how do you go about showing that you're genuine? How do you go about showing that your teammates, whether they're white or black, are accepted, they feel comfortable playing in, this environment in the lacrosse community? So Kyle, I guess I'll start with you. I guess what are some steps that you take to make sure that your teammates, whether they're white or black, feel accepted on your team?
I mean, at the end of the day, right? I mean, I can't speak for Pat and how he feels, but obviously there's not a ton of African American players, right? Sports predominantly white, and I think moving forward, right? I had a conversation with Kyle the other day. I asked him, what are we doing? When our first game, right? We have a massive stage, NBC TV window. What are we doing first game? Like, when the anthem comes on, we need to do something, right? We can't let this thing go by. We need to do something, whether that's a moment of silence for George Floyd, whether we stand in unison, take a knee, have a T-shirt on, whatever it is, our message needs to be heard, right? We have a very, very good opportunity here with these Olympic windows. Obviously, we have the NBA coming back. I can guarantee you they're going to do something when they play their first game as a league as a whole. But right, I think sports are a really good platform to make change, right? There are going to be a lot of eyes on the sport. Sports haven't been around for a while. And I think, I don't know how it makes Pat feel, but inclusion as in, making a message, standing together as white players, as black players, it does not matter, what nationality you are, what race you are, right? Standing together in unison, right? You saw international soccer, they had a match. I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks ago. They all stood around the semicircle and took a knee during the anthem to show their solidarity of everything that's going on in the civil rights movement, what's going on currently. So I think, Harrison's all over it. He's already been talking to players. I'm sure Pat might have been on that email. I'm not sure, but those wheels are already in motion because we can't let this thing fizzle out, right? That this has gone on far too long, and it sucks that I don't know how many lives have been lost to police brutality. I don't know how many African Americans have died from that, but it's a lot, and it sucks that it's taken this long, right? It's 2020, right? Slavery has existed pretty much since our entire time, from Native Americans all the way up, and it's just it really does suck that it has taken this long, right? It's a shame, right? It's a shame that it's taken this long. We see it all over the news. And I think this day and age in social media, right? Social media, things are up like that. The videos you can see right away. And I think social media makes everyone see it. So everyone in the world can see it. The media can't write the narrative of, maybe writing a narrative the wrong way. People see it and they make their own, they make their own call on it. So I think we just can't let this thing go by. We need to show, our teammates, our peers in the league that we care. And I'm genuine in that. I really do care about it, right? I never spoke up before about this because I kind of batted an eye at it because, right, my whole thought process when that stuff happens is, right, somebody else speak up about it, right? I can't do much from sitting back here, but my mindset has completely changed and gone the other way now because I realize I have an opportunity to use my platform to motivate kids, to teach kids, and to get the word out from whatever's being said, right? I'm sharing stuff from Jovan Miller because I don't know Black history, right? I wasn't taught it. My parents didn't teach me it. And like I said, it should be taught in schools because I'm uneducated at it. I'm 34 years old. I don't freaking know about any of the stuff, right? Because the media twists and turns it and they speak and they use their narrative on it. So, I just hope that it's not too late. Obviously, I'm 34 years old. I'm becoming an old man. I'm not be playing much longer, but I hope I can continue to, create the right message, and then hopefully, ultimately, create change and motivate kids that follow me to, at the end of the day, change. So.
Yeah, and Pat, I mean, it kind of going off of Kyle there. What can a teammate like Kyle, who hasn't gone through the same experiences with you, does not have the same skin color, what can they do to help make this sport or a team that you're on more inclusive and make you feel comfortable to be there?
The first thing I would say is just reach out. In terms of when you're on the field together or, just got done practice, or whatever it is, reach out to your black teammates like you would your white teammates, right? There's nothing different between us except for the color of our skin, right? We want to be included. We want to feel like we're a part of the group. We want to go out to eat with you guys, and you know what I'm saying? Like it's the same thing. So do the same things you would with your white teammates, with your black teammates. Also, the biggest thing is it's very easy to not say anything. Like Kyle said before, like it's a lot easier to sit back and be like, yeah, somebody will say something, but it's not going to be me. So if you hear racism in the locker room, or you hear a racist slur on the field, or you're out to lunch with all white teammates, there's no black teammate around, and somebody says something that's out of line, that is when the real difference is made. Because it's really easy to do something in front of somebody's face or say something on a screen, but it's a lot harder to challenge yourself to actually try and push for change. So that's my biggest thing is like, if you're around a bunch of, you know, white people and something goes down, be the one to step up, even if there's nobody around. Because who you are is what you do when nobody's around, not when people are looking.
Yeah.
And that's the way, that's what genuine is. That's what being genuine is.
And through your experiences, Pat, how would you say the lacrosse community has been with being genuine and being accepting and you know, kind of making sure that racism isn't a part of this world? How would you say the lacrosse community has handled that so far?
Up to this point or at this point?
Up to this point.
I would say that the lacrosse community could have done a much better job of handling these type of situations, addressing these type of situations, and realizing what I feel like people knew what lacrosse culture was like. They just were comfortable with it and didn't want to change it. Don't want to change it, right? But now that this has come to the forefront of this conversation is at the forefront of our country, it can't be ignored any longer. So, yeah, that's. Yeah.
And Kyle, I mean, you've heard Pat's story. Pat talked about it earlier. How does it make you feel hearing these stories that are being told by Black lacrosse players of, you know, racism, of racial injustice? You know, how does it make you feel kind of seeing that from your teammates?
Well, sitting back and hearing it hurts to feel that, you know, they have to have these experiences, or they had these experiences. I'm sure Pat has had, you know, we played at University of Maryland, whether it was in high school, I'm sure there were instances of racism he experienced, whether that was on the field, whether he heard it in the locker room. You know, and for me, you know, I've heard it, I've seen it. Like I said, being in high school, I've seen it and I heard it and wouldn't speak up about it. And now it's taken me this long to do that. You know, I guess better late than never, but like, you know, it hurts me because if I knew what I knew now and I could go back, you know, go back to high school, middle school, and, you know, could speak up, I would. But, you know, that time has passed. I cannot do that. So I'm trying to make good on it now. And, you know, and I'm not doing this just because this situation, like I'm going to continue to do this as long as I live. Because, you know, it sucks that, you know, they have to go through it, right? Like I said, it's 2020. This shouldn't be happening right now. Like it shouldn't be going on. They shouldn't have to experience it, but it really hurts to hear, you know, what he has to deal with. Like the story he told in the beginning, when he was telling it, I was just like, holy shit, I cannot imagine, you know, wheeling a bike down the street in a white neighborhood and being worried, scared for my life. Like, I don't know what that's like. I have no idea what it's like. I can only experience it through him saying it and imagining it, but it just doesn't, I will never get to feel what that feels like. Like I'll never get to feel that. And it's just really that he has to feel that way when he does that stuff, because we're in a time right now where that's reality for them. And that really sucks. And I wish I could do more, but like, you know, hopefully speaking up on it, and I'm going to continue to speak on it. Hopefully that helps and, you know, changes white culture and what we've, you know, like I said, batting an eye at it. Like we need to change that. We need to change that stuff. So I hope, you know, at the end of the day, it helps. And that's all I can do at this point. But for the most part, right, I'm listening. I'm listening to these guys, hearing their stories. I'm educating myself on it. And hopefully that makes me smarter at the end of the day and makes me, speak up on it moving forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned before we're not saying, we're not able to say or hadn't said anything about these things. And so, I'll want to ask this to both of you, but Pat, I'll start with you. What would you say to someone who, maybe is not sure what to say, but wants to speak, is not sure what to do, but wants to do something? What would you encourage them to do?
Yeah. So the first part, they're two different things. So if you want to speak and don't know what to say that, because it's a lot better to say, I don't know what to say, but I know this is wrong, than to sit back and say nothing. And then I'm sure that through your genuine attempt to speak out, you will receive, advice or feedback on what you can do or say to your Black friends. So if you're totally lost, ask for help, I would say. But if you do kind of know where you want to go with it, just make sure that, and I'm keep harping on this, make sure that it's genuine. Like, make sure that it comes from a real place, and then put it out there, and don't think about what other people are going to think. You can't allow what other people are going to think of you to hinder your action or reaction to what's going on. And then B, what can you do? Take action. So like in my Instagram post, you can sign petitions. Obviously, you just had an opportunity to vote. If you didn't vote, get out and vote, right? And vote for not just the big elections, the small ones, right? In your community and in your county is how you change your local laws, policies, et cetera, and then it grows from there, right? So make sure, and then with that being said, make sure you get out into your community, right? If you don't know what to do and you've never, interacted with Black people before, or, want to interact more with Black people, get out into your community. Don't be afraid to step outside from behind your phone or outside of your house and into someone else's reality, because that's the best way to understand what we're going through.
And Kyle, what would you say to someone who's on the fence who, isn't sure what to say, but wants to do something?
I mean, I was one of those people on the fence. I mean, this is my first conversation with an African-American about this. So, I mean, I was on the fence with it. That's why I sat back and listened. When it happened, I saw it. And then I just sat back and listened for, I don't know, it took me I think 4 days maybe to speak out, because I wanted to gather all my thoughts. I wanted to see what was going on. And then I made that statement. And then Jules, what was really interesting, Jules Henningberg's dad reached out to, I think it was Mike Rabel, and just because he didn't have my number, and just said, hey, really appreciate what Kyle did. I understand that he could have, put some of his relationships in jeopardy. And that, I was just like, that made me think. I was just like, do I know people that are, might be racist? Do I know that? But at the end of the day, right, I don't give a shit, because I know what I know, and I know what I believe in, and I know how I was raised. And if that, at the end of the day, makes someone not like me, whether it's someone who follows me on Instagram or follows me on Twitter, then I don't want you following me, because that's how I feel. That's how I was raised. That's how I go about life. But, I was one of those players that was on the fence. But at the end of the day, I felt I needed to speak up, because I think me speaking up made other players who necessarily probably wouldn't have said anything speak up, right? You saw guys like Marcus Holman speak up, guys who have a big following, which is good, because the people on their platform are seeing them speak up about it, and hopefully they see that and then they speak up. They're talking to their friends about it, because this is the first conversation I've had about this. In my I've been alive for 34 years. I've never spoken about this to anyone, whether my white friends, my African-American friends. I've never spoken about it. So, when you guys texted me, I jumped at the challenge, because I want to have these conversations, because I want people to feel, comfortable to have these. It's not comfortable to have them. I'm becoming more comfortable with it, because I realize how much of an impact it's going to make at the end of the day. So I would just say to people that might feel awkward about it, is like what Pat said, man, you just got to speak, because if you hold it in at the end of the day, no one's going to, maybe someone else is thinking the same thing you're thinking, but if you speak up about it, they're going to speak up about it now, because you came out and said something. So I hope that's what that message I sent the other day makes people, confident or not scared to speak up about it. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have conversations about it and this stuff goes unnoticed, like I said, every other instance I feel has been swept under the rug. 2 weeks go by, nothing happens. So I hope this instance, it sucks it's taken this long, but I hope this instance with George Floyd, I hope it sparks conversation. And I think it's going to create the change that we need in this country.
And Pat, you mentioned you just had a child there, and this is it's an interesting world to to be raising a child in, and so I wanted to just kind of ask you, what do you plan on sharing with your kid about this world and what it means to be a Black person, and what it means to fight racism in this world?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing for me is empowering my daughter. We tell her every day, and she's only 3 months, but we tell her how beautiful her brown skin is. We tell her that we love her and that she's smart. And, I think that if she doesn't find if she doesn't find herself beautiful and she doesn't know her value as a Black woman, when she does encounter racism, it's that much harder for her not to believe what's being said about her. So that's the first step is teaching her every day how beautiful and valuable and smart that she is. And then, as she grows up and we have that conversation, like Kyle also said earlier, hopefully the climate won't be the same that it is right now. But if it is, I will teach her how to protect herself. I will teach her how to stand up for herself. I will teach her how to use her voice. And I will teach her right from wrong, just like anybody else would. But I also know that my child will be vigilant. My child will be aware, both socially and physically, and that she is going to fight the good fight because that's the way that we're raising her.
Great words. And just to kick it to Kyle, obviously you don't have a child yet, but it's something that is going to be on the minds as you grow older. What would you tell your future child about this world and the lessons that you want to teach them to make sure that they're on the right foot as they're growing up as in this world?
I think educating them. Obviously my kid isn't going to experience what Pat's kid's going to experience, but I think educating them as to stand up for what's right. They're going to have African American friends, but just stand up for what's right, because their dad, in the past did not do that, right? When I was a young kid, when I experienced stuff like that, I would not speak up because the easier route is to walk away and not pay attention to it. So I think just bringing them up, raising them right, and educating them on it, right? I hope Black history is taught more in schools, because I think that can, kind of like people smoking cigarettes, you show them the worst pictures in the world of lung cancer. I think kids need to see how Black people were treated back, in the civil rights movement, back when there was slavery. People need to see those images. And, not that that's, using scare tactics to scare them to think the right way, but they need to know that stuff, because at the end of the day, our country, how it was built, and, slavery, it's very important that we do educate people on that, because I wasn't educated on it. And, I'm educating myself now. But I think, just raising your kids right? There's always going to be bad apples out there. There's always going to be guys out there that are, racist. And, I think we're always going to have that, which is really bad. But I think we can change everybody for the better as a whole. But you're always going to have one or two people that are going to be idiots. And, I hope just raising my kid right, educating them the right way, and just showing them how to be a good citizen, and, everybody's equal, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, and before you start there, I mean, he doesn't have kids. I have a kid, but we literally said the same thing. Is we, and that's what it comes down to is just raising your kid the right way. Obviously, people have different values, different beliefs, different thoughts. But at the end of the day, if you have positive morals, then we will see change, I believe.
Yep, absolutely.
Wise words. And again, I really appreciate you guys taking out the time, and I just wanted to kind of leave it open to you. I'll go back to you, Kyle, and start with you here. Is what would your final words be on the subject to the lacrosse community? What words would you give them to move forward and to try to help make this game as inclusive as it can be?
The time is now. I mean, we can't wait any longer. This is it. Like Pat said, we can't have another instance like this happen. The time is now. We need to speak up about it. We need to make a stand. We need to keep making our message heard. When PLL kicks off here in 50 days, we need to send a message, whether that's standing together in unity, putting Floyd's name on our backs, whether that's on all of our nameplates on the back, putting Black Lives Matters on our nameplates, whatever the heck it is. We have a really, really good opportunity, a unique opportunity, because this platform we have in 50 days is the whole world's gonna be watching. So I think we need to do something where, we show people that in 2 months that this is not swept under the rug. We're still talking about it. We need to stand up for it, and we need to make our message heard. We need to continue this message. It cannot stop. And I'm going to make it my duty to not let it stop. Right, every week on Instagram, I'm going to be posting something, doing something. I've started a Cameo to all proceeds going to nonprofits, and then hopefully that's stuff that we need to make change. So, but the time is now. We need to step up and keep making our voices heard.
Pat?
Yeah, to just piggyback on that, I guess it's kind of a challenge or a question, but basically, how can we install structures or mechanisms to put in place to make sure that this conversation ensures change, both for now and for the long-term future? Because I would hate to be wasting my breath right now, and I think Kyle and I are echoing the same thing here. Is like, the time is now. Let's make it happen. Period. Like there's no, we've been having this, although this is the first time a lot of people have been having this conversation. This conversation has been being had for so long, right? And so there's no more conversation that needs to happen. It's all about action now. I'm sorry, I kind of had to get through that, but yeah, this conversation's been being had for so long. Now it's time for action.
Awesome. Yeah, well put. And again, I appreciate you guys taking out the time to have this discussion on this week. Obviously, it's a pivotal time for this country. So, I just want to thank you guys again for taking out the time to share your stories here.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Absolutely.